A Child is Born, A Beginner's Guide to Nativity Stories by Amy Jill Levine. Chapter 3, The Conception and Birth of Samuel, pages 68 through 77. The Vow. Leaving Elkanah's question about his worth unanswered, Hannah remains distressed. She neither eats nor drinks nor responds to questions. The rest of the family, meanwhile, continues with business as usual. They are at the sanctuary. It's time to eat and drink. As for Hannah, her throat was constricted with grief. No words came out. No food goes in. Following the meal, Hannah gets up. Now she, like Hagar, starts to show agency. Rather than have a heart-to-heart with Elkanah, she presented herself before the Lord. 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 9a. She will present her son Samuel to Eli. People present gifts on the altar. People do not generally present themselves to God. To present oneself to the divine is to be fully present. It is both to have the courage to state the truth and the vulnerability of needing an answer. She speaks words to God that she will not speak to her husband or to her co-wife. Hannah is the first woman to make such a presentation. The visitors came to Abraham. The angel visits Hagar at the well and Mrs. Manoah at the field. They are recipients of revelation, not initiators. Hannah acts. She goes to the sanctuary alone to tell God what she needs. From Hannah's desperation, the narrative turns to Eli, the priest, sitting on the seat beside the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 9b. His sons are doing the work of the shrine. Eli sits. I'm reminded of Mrs. Manoah, sitting in the field, or Abraham, sitting at the door of his tent. All three will receive revelation. Perhaps sitting, not being occupied with other matters, is a good time to be open to a divine presence or a person in need. Alternatively, the text says nothing about Eli's wife or about any grandchildren. He seems alone, perhaps feeling no longer useful. No one seeks his advice. No divine presence envelopes him. He sits. We can add a side note on Eli's grandchildren. When Phinehas' wife was pregnant, she heard the news that the Philistines had captured the ark and that her husband and father-in-law had died. Dying in childbirth, she names her son Ichabod, which means the glory has departed from Israel, because the ark of God had been captured and because of her father-in-law and her husband. 1 Samuel chapter 4, verse 21. Not all children will be raised by their biological mothers. While Eli sits, we return to Hannah, who was deeply distressed and prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 10. The verbs predicated of Hannah contrast with Eli's inaction. I would have expected Eli, had he any pastoral sense, to offer comfort, a cup of water, a kind smile. But nothing. He sits. Hannah now speaks. O Lord of hosts, if only you will look on the misery of your servant and remember me and not forget your servant. 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 11a. There is so much to say about this phrase. First, Hannah demonstrates the value of lament. Distressed and weeping bitterly, she does not hide her misery. She both shows God how she feels and tells God how she feels. I can hear her say, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me from the words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but find no rest. Psalm chapter 22, verses 1 through 2. She imagines herself mocked by Peninnah's presence, and each time she sees a mother with a child, she thinks, all who see me mock me. They sneer at me. They shake their heads. Psalm 22, verse 7. Psalm 22, verse 9 through 10. Yet it was you who took me from the womb. You kept me safe on my mother's breast. On you I was cast from my birth, and since my mother bore me, you have been my God. Is both pathetic in relation to Hannah's needs and predictive in relation to the dedication of Samuel to God. Any prayer in the Bible, a psalm, Hannah's prayers in 1 Samuel 1 and 2, Mary's Magnificat, can be prayed by anyone. Second, Hannah's first words are, O Lord of hosts. The epithet suggests a heavenly court, which allows the contrast. God has myriads of attendants. Could Hannah not have just one child? Rabbi Elazar, quoted in the Babylonian Talmud, Barakat 31a through b suggests that Hannah was making an analogy. God is the master of all of creation, hosts upon host. Could he therefore not grant her one son? Then the rabbi offers a parable with a formula. To what is this similar? A king makes a feast for his servants. A poor person, standing at the door, begs for one piece of bread, but the people at the feast ignore him. Finally, pushing his way into the room, he stands before the king, and he notes that with the great feast, surely a piece of bread can be spared. Jesus, the storyteller himself, would have liked this one. Third, just as Hagar named El Roi, the God who sees, so Hannah is the first person in the Bible to call God the Lord of hosts. When we address God, we find the title that works best for us: Father, Shepherd, Rock, Source, Lord. Fourth, Hannah cries, "Remember me." This is the same cry Samson voiced when blinded and bound in the Philistine temple. He called to the Lord and said, "Lord God, remember me and strengthen me only this once, O God, so that with this one act of revenge I may pay back the Philistines for my 2 eyes." Judges chapter 16, verse 28. Hannah asks for new life. Samson asks for a good death. The call to God to remember, which appears frequently in Israel's scriptures, prompts us to ask both for what do we want to be remembered and for what do we need to be reminded. The theme of divine memory is like a drumbeat or a heartbeat throughout the scriptures of Israel. It resounds when, following the flood, God states, "I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh." Genesis chapter 9, verse 15. Memory is like a heavenly life preserver. As long as we are remembered, we still live. In Exodus chapter 32, verse 13, Moses prays to God, "Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, how you swore to them by your own self, saying to them, I will multiply your descendants like the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever." There are another 200 or so appeals, whether asking God to remember the covenants or asking the people to remember those same covenants or their experience in Egypt. Fifth is Hannah's self-reference. Your servant, your servant. The Hebrew and Greek can also be translated your slave, your slave. The King James Version gives handmaid, which prior to Margaret Atwood's novel and the television show based on it was quaint, and after is unthinkable. The self-definition connects Hannah to Mary, the slave of the Lord, Luke chapter 1, verse 38, NRSV servant, as well as to other slaves of the Lord, Moses, Joshua, David, Isaiah's suffering figure. If we take this title for ourselves, how do we understand its connotations? Sixth, Hannah's prayer is personal. Remember me. Not every prayer needs to be for world peace. Prayers can be, indeed should be, also personal. Seventh, she specifies she wants a male child, or as both the Hebrew and Greek literally read, seed of men. The expression can connote a great or important man, someone who will stand out. Alternatively, it could mean one man among many, an average fellow. We can speculate as to what she wants, and so what we wish for our children or grandchildren, or for ourselves. Do we want importance in the public eye? A commemorative coin, a ticker tape parade, access to the proverbial halls of power? These are more or less what Hannah's son Samuel will have, or do we want for them, or for us, a happy and fulfilled life? Or both? Finally, Hannah vows, "Then I will set him before you as a Nazirite until the day of his death. He shall drink neither wine nor intoxicants, and no razor shall touch his head." 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 11b. Connections to Samson, as well as to John the Baptizer, abound. Hannah's prayer is a type of bargaining. Let me get an A on this paper. Let me get into this graduate program. Let me get this job. Let me win the lottery, and I'll tithe, quit smoking, stop drinking, work in a soup kitchen. Usually the "then I'll do X" is what we ought to be doing in the first place. Bargaining with God can make prayer transactional. The judge Jephthah made such a bargain, and it resulted in the death of his daughter. This comparison of Jephthah makes me wonder. Elkanah is not present when Hannah makes her vow. So what did he think? The child she promises to dedicate to God is also his child. Should the father have a say in its implementation? Hannah is not the only one who makes obedience transactional. The patriarch Jacob at Bethel, the name means house of God, made a vow saying, "If God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat, and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house, and for all that you give me I will surely give 1/10 to you." Genesis chapter 28, verses 20 through 22. Then again, Jacob has nothing to lose. Were he to die, he could not continue to worship God. It may be helpful to think about why we, or some of us, make such prayers. Perhaps we are thinking of God as an automatic. If I do this, then God will do that. We know better, but that knowledge does not stop us from such bargains. Better, such prayers allow us to show a form of gratitude. They give us a form of agency. As for vows that can harm, such as the one Jephthah makes, or vowing resources to a religious institution and so potentially depriving family members of their needs, see Mark 7 and Matthew 15, Rabbinic Judaism teaches that any vow leading to harm not only can be, but should be, revoked. Despite Hannah's heartfelt prayer and weeping, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying silently. Only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore, Eli thought she was drunk. 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 12 through 13. While silent prayer, like silent reading, was likely a rarity, his lack of sympathy strikes me as harsh. Perhaps he is thinking of his own debauched sons. Perhaps he cannot see the good in anyone, given his familial situation, as Hannah could not see the good in her own life, given her familial situation. Or perhaps Eli expected different, more composed behavior at the sanctuary. Decades ago, when people in churches started to raise their hands when reciting the Our Father, it seemed to me odd, or even show-offy. I judged the unfamiliar negatively. I should have known better. Many of us expect the polite form of prayer, where emotions are not on display. Decorum may keep the service humming along nicely, but it can get in the way of authentic religious experience. What is decorous to one person may seem inauthentic or, well, barren to another. Not only does Eli think Hannah is drunk, he attempts to humiliate her by asking, "How long will you make a drunken spectacle of yourself? Put away your wine." 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 14. In calling Hannah out, Eli seeks to make a spectacle of her. The kinder move with anyone who is drunk is not to humiliate, it is to care. Nor was Hannah drunk. Facing such emotional displays, people often do not know what to do. They hush, they shush, they look away. This is the time for kindness, not judgment. Hannah now maintains her composure. She does not say, "Butt out," or "You idiot." Her eloquent response makes clear that she is not drunk, not out of control, not, to use the term commonly applied to women in such situations, hysterical. "No, my lord," she starts. She addresses him respectfully. Perhaps she knows him. She and the family had been going to Shiloh year after year. Perhaps she knows that he is broken and in despair himself. Perhaps she can find empathy where he could not. She explains, "I am a woman deeply troubled. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Do not regard your servant as worthless woman, for I have been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation all this time." 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 15 through 16. It takes courage to admit that one is anxious and vexed. Further, Hannah had vowed that were she to have a son, she would make him a perpetual Nazirite. Here she affirms her maternal role. Like Mrs. Manoah, she has avoided wine and strong drink. Her prayer is both passionate and sober. Jewish tradition makes Hannah's prayer the model for how to pray. The Babylonian Talmud, Barakat 31a through b, concludes from the fact that Hannah's lips moved in her silent prayer, that in prayer we should move our lips. This approach prevents us from rushing through or speed reading. It brings the body into prayer. It means, ideally, that we think about what we are saying, rather than going on automatic. Next, it notes that some prayers should be said silently, even when we are praying in communal context. There are times we raise our voices together, and there are times when we pray as individuals. Finally, the tradition approves Hannah's reproach to Eli. One who is suspected of doing something wrong must correct the impression. Further, it insists that the one who held the incorrect view, upon being corrected, should reconcile with a blessing, just as Eli, corrected, said to Hannah, "Go in peace." 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 17a. Although Eli doesn't apologize for misjudging Hannah, were I writing this text, I would have included an apology. He more or less admits his mistake. Now comes the Annunciation, taking the form of a blessing. Eli prays, "The God of Israel grant the petition you have made to him." 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 17b. Hannah assents, "Let your servant find favor in your sight." 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 18a. Beneath the term find favor is the Hebrew chen, the root of the name Hannah. Beneath servant is shkifcha, the same term used for Hagar in Genesis 16. I wonder if Hannah were engaging in a double entendre. Did she think of herself as Eli's servant, or was she rather continuing to pray? For she sees herself as God's servant, and it is in God's sight that she prays to be remembered. Hannah then acts as if her prayer has already been answered. We see her as she went her way and ate and drank. The Septuagint, and so the NRSVUE, adds with her husband, perhaps to clarify that there was no hanky-panky with the priest, or that she did not stop off at the pub. The Septuagint also adds, her countenance was sad no longer. The Hebrew, which is difficult to translate, may be a pun. It reads literally something like, "And before her face not was there to her still." The term beneath her face sounds very much like Peninnah, as if perhaps Peninnah is no longer a vexation. The rivalry is over. Hannah is not yet pregnant, but she is assured that she will become so. She does not laugh like Sarah, flee like Hagar, or have a chat with her husband, as did Mrs. Manoah. Multiple reactions are appropriate.